Hello, my name is Paul Rogers, and I am Head of Daylight Certification at the Swedish consultancy firm ACC Glass and Facade Consultants. I will be speaking to you today about Swedish daylight standards and regulations. I feel qualified to talk to you on this subject as I have been working with daylight certification in Sweden since 2008. My firm, ACC, currently has a group of 8 certification specialists working exclusively with daylight, solar heat gains, and shading systems, and our current caseload is over 200 projects. I myself have authored 2 reports and served on, or I'm currently serving on, a number of committees pertaining to daylight certification in both Sweden and internationally. This module is broken into 2 parts. In the first part, having to do with regulations, we'll be focusing mainly on the Swedish Building Code. I'll also, however, give a short review of the regulations originating from the Swedish Workplace Safety Authority. In the second part of the lecture, I'll give a short review of daylight criteria in the 2 most common third-party environmental certification systems used in Sweden. This is Miljöbyggnad and the Svanen Nordic label. It should be noted, however, that the Svanen Nordic label, or Svanen for short, is applicable also to Denmark, Norway, and Finland. Though I'll be making some general statements about the system in this module, I'll be focusing mainly on thresholds applicable to Sweden. Now I have to apologize in advance. Over the course of my career, I've been known for flashy and at times amusing presentations, but this is not one of them. The content is rather heavy and text-based, so plan to take some breaks. The majority of the content is aimed at those just starting to familiarize themselves, but I do hope the show also gives useful tips for those already working with the subject. So we will start by discussing the Swedish Building Code, which is commonly referred to as BBR. We'll examine the legal requirement itself, and then move to the general advice for demonstrating compliance. Next, we will discuss the real-world application and enforcement of this legislation, and then finally speculate on future directions for the code. We'll follow a similar structure for the review of legislation from the Workers' Safety Board, commonly referred to as Arbetsmiljöverket. The legislation from Arbetsmiljöverket was updated as recently as 2020. And then for part 2, we'll be discussing the Miljöbyggnad and Svanen Nordic label certification systems with the subtopics listed here. Much of what is discussed will be on introductory level, but as I mentioned before, I do believe there is some useful information for even the most experienced in daylight certification in Sweden. But just a tip, again, I strongly suggest taking a nap or at least a short break between part 1 and part 2 of the show.